Alright, so here we are with Unit 10, lesson number 3. And this is kind of a continuation of the previous lesson. We're going to go through and show you how to identify if a reaction is redox or not. And it is relatively straightforward if you remember the rules that we just talked about. Elements by themselves are going to be zeros. Oxygen's almost always a -2. Hydrogen's almost always a +1. And the numbers have to equal 0 in a compound, the oxidation number. So let's go through and show you how to do a couple of these. Whoops, hello. Here we go. Alright, so let's go through this. Alright, so here's the equation here. So you're going to say to yourself, okay, well, carbon is by itself. It's not in a compound. This plus sign separates the carbon from this. So that tells you these are two separate substances. So the carbon's a 0, as is the hydrogen. We know hydrogen's a +1. We know oxygen's a -2. Now, we don't know what carbon is because carbon can be at least 3 different numbers, but we know that oxygen's a -2. And since they're a 1-to-1 ratio, I know carbon has to be a +2. So let's take a look. The carbon goes from 0 to a +2. So the charge on the carbon increases. That means it is oxidized. Now, I like to do, instead of doing this chart, I just like to write it here. So here's oxidation. Now, if there's oxidation, there's going to be probably reduction. So let's take a look. The oxygen went from -2 and it stayed a -2. So the oxygen is a spectator ion. We're going to ignore that. But the hydrogen goes from a +1 down to a 0. So its charge decreased. So that's reduction. And now if you go back to the definitions that are just above this, when the oxidation number increases, remember Leo and Ger. Loss of electrons is oxidation. So this lost, which means that this gained electrons. Whoops. Okay. I'll finish writing that. Alright, the next one. Now this is going to be a little bit more tricky. So let's go through this. We know oxygen's a -2. But there's 2 of them, so that's -4. So the manganese, not magnesium, but manganese has to be a +4. So the oxidation for manganese, number for manganese is +4, and the oxidation number for oxygen is -2. This is easy, +1, -1. Now we don't know, again, manganese can be more than 1, but we know chlorine in a binary compound is -1, but there's 2 of them, so that's -2. So you see how we already see the manganese, in this case, is not a +4 because that would not cancel out the -2. It's a +2. Chlorine is by itself. It's a 0. And we know hydrogen +1, oxygen -2. So let's go through this. So the manganese went from +2 down to a +4. So the charge decreased. So that is reduction. And we know reduction is the gain. I don't know why it's doing this. So again, we know that this decrease, I'm just going to write a D, DEC, and that means it's reduction. Oh boy, okay. So this is reduction, and this is the gain of electrons. The chlorine, in this case, this was a -1, this was a 0. It went from a -1 up to 0. That's actually a gain or an increase in oxidation number. It doesn't look like it, and I'll go through why it is. That lost electrons, that's oxidation. And one of the ways, if you get caught up with trying to figure out if it's going up or down, if you remember this, just do a scale like this: +3, +2, +1, 0, -1, -2, -3. If you're going in this direction, that's oxidation. If you're going in the other direction, that's reduction. That might help you out just a little bit. These 2 things we are just going to cross out, not asked about on the Regents exam anymore. Oxidizing and reducing agent, not necessary to worry about that. Okay, I'm going to, since we didn't go through and do oxidizing and reducing agent, we are going to not do that part either. So that's the end of lesson